I want you to see this powerful testimony from the wife of David Dorn. He was a father, a brother, a grandfather, a retired police officer just helping out a friend, and one of the thousands of innocent victims Black Lives Matter doesn't care about.
Hello, my name is Ann Dorn. I'd like to introduce you to my husband, David. Father of 5, brother of 12, grandfather of 10, friend to thousands. He was the most kind, dedicated, loving life partner I could have hoped for. He had a big smile and a heart to match. He was blessed with the gift of gab, and that gift enabled him to touch souls and inspire people, especially young people. Oh, how kids loved him, and they really loved him back. Dave was all about service. He served 38 years in the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department and 6 years as chief of police as the Moline Acres Police Department. After 44 years, he retired from law enforcement, but he never retired from helping a friend in need. Since he befriended every person he met, he was a very busy man. One example of that was his friendship with a young man named Lee. David met him when Lee was just a kid, after members of his family were attacked and murdered. Dave took a special interest in the boy. They bonded, and their friendship grew and remained strong throughout the years. Lee eventually opened a pawn shop. He trusted Dave implicitly and asked Dave to help with security. David readily agreed. Whenever the shop's alarm would go off, the alarm company called Dave. He would investigate. If he got a call after I went to bed, he would wake me up and tell me he was going to Lee's, just to make sure everything was all right. Most of the time they were false alarms, triggered by a storm or animals. But I never rested easily until I heard Dave's key turn in the door, knowing he was home safe. The alarm that went off the morning of June 2nd was for real. It was a violent night in St. Louis. 4 officers were shot. Others were hit with rocks and fireworks. At least 5 businesses were damaged, looted, or set on fire. As the Officer Wellness Coordinator and CIT Coordinator with the police department, I was keenly aware of the rioting and spent the evening getting ready to mobilize support for officers who were impacted. After I'd gone to bed, David received a call from Lee's alarm company. The front door of the pawn shop had been breached. This time he didn't wake me up to tell me. He probably knew I would have tried to stop him or insist on going with him. As I slept, looters were ransacking the shop. They shot and killed David in cold blood, and then live streamed his execution and his last moments on earth. David's grandson was watching the video on Facebook in real time, not realizing he was watching his own grandfather dying on the sidewalk. I learned of all this around 4 a.m. when our doorbell rang. The chief of police was standing outside. I wondered why Dave had not answered the door. It wasn't uncommon for him to be up watching TV at this time. I called out to him several times. There was no reply. He just wasn't there. I let in the chief, and fighting back tears, he uttered the words every officer's spouse dreads. I relive that horror in my mind every single day. My hope is that having you relive it with me now will help shake this country from this nightmare we are witnessing in our cities and bring about positive, peaceful change. How do we get to this point where so many young people are callous and indifferent towards human life? This isn't a video game where you can commit mayhem and then just hit reset and bring all the characters back to life. David is never coming back to me. He was murdered by people who didn't know and just didn't care. He would have done anything to help them. Violence and destruction are not legitimate forms of protest. They do not safeguard Black lives. They only destroy them. President Trump understands this, has offered federal help to restore order in our communities. In a time when police departments are short on resources and manpower, we need that help. We should accept that help. We must heal before we can effect change, but we cannot heal amid devastation and chaos. President Trump knows we need more Davids in our communities, not fewer. We need to come together in peace and remember that every life is precious.
What's sad is obviously protesting is legal. Well, except you can't protest the lockdown. Facebook will stop you. Democrat governors will try to arrest you for legally protesting if you protest something they don't want you to. But if you protest for Black Lives Matter, it's legal. What's not legal is terrorism, murder, riots, violence, blocking traffic, harassing cars, looting stores. That's illegal. And the police aren't out just arresting thousands of innocent, peaceful protesters. They're arresting murderers, looters, people who purposely don't follow the rules. And celebrities were bailing out a bunch of these people. It's almost like they want your city in chaos. Virginia Democrats are working on a bill to make it a misdemeanor to attack a police officer. I'm not a pro-police fanatic, but attacking a police officer, you're basically incentivizing it, making it easier to do so. They don't care about David Dorn. They don't care about anybody. The safety and security of your neighborhood, the fact that up to 80% of Black Americans don't want the police defunded or disbanded, they don't care. Actually, the phony vice president hopeful says this isn't going to end. This isn't going to stop.
I know that there are protests still happening in major cities across the United States. I'm just not seeing the reporting on it that I had
That's right.
for the first few weeks.
That's right. But they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. And they're not. This is a movement. I'm telling you, they're not going to stop. And everyone beware, because they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that they're not going to let up, and they should not. And we should not.
And of course, I support protests, but she's not even acknowledging the riots, the murder, the vandalizing, the looting that has become our major cities. I mean, it's just obvious, right? Well, if you're an honest person, it is, but if you're not like them, they don't see it. They just call it peaceful protesting. David Dorn murdered, hundreds of businesses destroyed, people all over the place getting harassed and terrorized. But with a smile on their face, they want to let you know, oh, it's going to continue way after the election.
In major cities across the United States, I'm just not seeing the reporting on it that I had for the first few weeks.
That's right. But they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. And they're not. This is a movement, I'm telling you.
At a certain point, good people are going to have to rise up, because if these evil, wicked people get their way, they're going to treat you like David Dorn. Recently, psychopaths tried to light a police precinct on fire and cement the door shut, of course, to try to kill the people inside. They're harassing the head of Seattle police at his house. They're attacking Rand Paul in the streets, who, by the way, out of all the Republicans, is probably the nicest, most integrity-driven one. His father, Ron Paul, is an American treasure. The Paul family's fantastic. Out of everybody in Washington, they should be the least of your worries. But evil people live in opposite worlds, so of course they want to attack him the most. Just like a couple years ago, his neighbor broke his ribs by tackling him off a lawnmower, because these are the types of people they are. And Trump is surging in the polls because people don't want to live in a hellhole that's filled with violence, chaos, and a bunch of Democrats that act like they don't even see it. It's just a peaceful protest, right? David Dorn murdered, peaceful protest. We don't even see it. Yeah, most people don't want that. So now that Trump is surging in the polls and is almost definitely going to surge in the polls after he annihilates Joe Biden in the debates, Nancy Pelosi is slurringly explaining why she thinks Joe Biden shouldn't debate.
Since you asked about that, I myself, just don't tell anybody I told you this, especially don't tell Joe Biden. I don't think that there should be any debates. I do not think that the President of the United States has comported himself in a way that anybody should, and that has any association with truth, evidence, data, and facts. I wouldn't legitimize a conversation with him, nor a debate in terms of the presidency of the United States. Now, I know that the Biden campaign thinks in a different way about this, but I thought what he did in the 2016
The truth is, Joe Biden would get destroyed by President Trump in a debate, and the entire American public would realize that he's much funnier, more honest, more accurate, more integrity-driven than Joe Biden could ever be. They can't let you see that, so they have to lie and say, oh, don't even legitimize a debate or a conversation with him. Let's just sit this one out. Yeah, right, we believe you. So I hope you were touched as much as I was by David Dorn's wife's speech. And this is the future of America. Do you want mobs, chaos, violence, destruction, and a bunch of Democrats making it easier for criminals to do so, bailing serious criminals out of jail, making it a misdemeanor for them to steal and attack police officers, completely ignoring thousands of lives if it doesn't fit their political agenda, using all their media power, the NBA, the NFL, the NHL, to push their propaganda and to smear anybody who points out the facts, violence, destruction, and chaos as a racist or a horrible person? This is the future they want, so I hope honest, good people are going to wake up. But unlike the phony and fraudulent LeBron James who tells you fear, 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 which is what the news does as well, all his media buddies. Fear, 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 fear. Don't have fear. The complete opposite. Have faith, show love, be the type of person that you want to see in the world.
I'm also a lifelong Democrat, but I support Donald Trump. Let me be clear. I didn't come here for the popularity or the praise, the likes or the retweets. I'm here as a servant to God.
They've become wicked because they think because of their politics or because of their ethnicity or gender or political affiliation that they're above the laws of God. They're above treating your neighbors with respect. They're above truth. They're above justice. They're above looking for facts and evidence and context. They think they're above it all. They think they don't have to treat others the way they want to be treated. They think they could lie, and then when they're caught lying, they just double down on it because they're so good. They're so much better than you because they're liberal. Well, that doesn't make any sense. So I think it's time for him to crack open his Malcolm X book and listen to what he said about his political allies.
There are many whites who are trying to solve the problem, but you never see them going under the label of liberals. That white person that you see calling himself a liberal is the most dangerous thing in the entire Western Hemisphere. He's the most deceitful. He's like a fox.
The most dangerous person in the entire Western Hemisphere. I agree. But LeBron doesn't care. Neither does the media. Neither do the Democrats. But don't have fear. That's what they want you to have. Have faith. Be a strong, honest person. That's how we'll win. If everybody becomes a degenerate hypocrite who just wants to destroy, there will be nothing left. But David Dorn's wife inspired me, as did many people who spoke at the RNC. To be honest, it was much better than I even thought it was going to be. I'm inspired to make this country better instead of let some of the most evil, degenerate, disgusting, dishonest, cowardly liars destroy our country, ignore the murder of people, ignore the chaos, destruction, and invert reality with catchphrases, using media manipulation to pretend like they have the moral high ground. They don't. And the silent majority is growing quickly and will eventually be less silent. God bless you guys. Have a beautiful day. If you like my hat, I actually designed it myself. It's not out yet, but it'll be out in a week or so. I'll let you know with the link. I'll be back with more videos soon.